gosh.
So, everything's set up. Welcome to the Permanent Way Gang.
We clean up so that you don't have to. I'm Tigerhawk. That's Warwell.
Both are he, him.
Eventually...
Both are pronouns he, him. And someday we may get a third host, Hazel. So, but...
Pronouns are she, her. We miss Hazel. She's the most chaotic out of the three of us, but
debatable.
At the same time, Hazel's internet is something to simultaneously be...
It runs on potatoes.
And just... Oh god, why? Yeah. So, we're the Permanent Way Gang, and our job is to clean up and cover fandom content.
Today's topic is The Monster Under the Shed.
A highly popular series produced by TheBlueSnowplow with 4 parts and a 5th part coming out in 2023. I can't remember the exact date.
Right, Tiger, you want to go over the basic plot points before we start talking the fine elements?
Okay, sure. So, for those of you who haven't seen The Monster Under the Shed, stop listening, watch it. This will cover major spoilers, because we're going to be talking about the whole thing, and also the fact that if you haven't seen it yet, I can no longer be your friend. So, The Monster Under the Shed centers around the supernatural events that occur near Howland Lake. It starts with Edward telling a ghost story, as you would, and it's slowly revealed to us as the audience that there's a lot more going on than just a simple ghost story. And every installment builds on the last, and it's getting creepier and creepier. Warwell, you got anything to add?
It's very creatively made. That's something I have to give to TheBlueSnowplow, that some of the effects, how he got them, it's obvious, but it's very clever. Like the monster that chasing our main locomotive, which is fighting against the ghost or monster, get chased by something during the ghost story. The something is basically Diesel 10 clipped into the ground with Pinchy sticking up and made ghostly blue. It's absolutely simplistic, but it works wonderfully.
Oh yeah, I think the main highlight for me, more than even the story itself, is just how clever the filmmaking is. It feels professional.
That's because I think it is.
Good point.
So, characters. Of course, we have the normal Thomas characters. Edward, as mentioned, that's the ghost story.
Although, I think out of the quote-unquote normal characters, the only ones you would really expect, like the main cast of the actual show, it's only Edward and James that feature her, really.
Yes, other very prominently featured characters from the canon of the series are Stepney, who has quite the run-in with the monster, that later, and the little adorable orange man, Rusty.
Or in this case, Orange NB.
Oh right, I forgot. Sorry.
It's good. Just for those of you who don't know me, Rusty is one of my favorite Thomas characters. So seeing them get such a prominent role is absolutely amazing to me.
Then we come on to the extra characters. We have
The OCs, if you will.
We have on one hand, well, he's not really an OC, but from what I've remember, because last time I watched it was some weeks ago, so correct me on it, Tiger, if I'm wrong, but I think Mr. Bailey is the driver.
Yes, Old Bailey from season 5
plays
Victor Kanzing and the Stories of Sodor. You'll know him as Jack Bailey.
Basically, he plays the role of the important human secret keeper. Then we have Harwin.
Harwin is based on a magazine exclusive engine that provided the origin for the series itself. A small story called The Monster Under the Shed.
Harwin is the locomotive from the story. Yes, but the thing is, he knows things. He knows very many things.
Harwin has a lot of information that we as the audience are not privy to, and it makes the whole thing a lot more interesting. Because we have no idea what to expect for parts of this.
And thirdly, but very importantly, we have 1020, the monster himself.
1020 is...
For those who don't know, he is a background character of one of the books written
Railway Series books
that once ran along a similar line to Toby's, meeting up with him from time to time. And from what we've learned so far through the series is that 1020 worked the line up to Harwin Lake.
And he died. He died brutally.
He died brutally, and people blamed him for it, even though apparently from his own words, he wasn't at fault. Dumped him into the lake and all that. Truly horrific stuff.
So now, he's haunting the line and causing engines some pretty serious problems. And he won't stop until he is laid to rest, or, well...
Everyone is traumatized.
1020's goals are very ambiguous.
We don't know exactly what he wants if not to be laid to rest, but we all can agree it's not good. Just put that engine on to rest. He deserves it.
Yeah, I think 1020 is one of the more complicated characters in the series because there's clearly a lot more to him than what we see, but at the same time, he tries to get all these engines killed, and he doesn't seem to have a single shred of remorse about it. He
traumatizes Stepney in the second episode, as far as I remember, could also be the third.
Second episode is Stepney, which is the second episode. The monsters are due at Howen Lake.
Yeah.
It's implied that he wrecked Howen.
And basically, he gives poor Stepney hallucinations about him being unworthy of being preserved, and this basically drives Stepney crazy.
Well, it comes close.
Not really crazy, but he just
Howen
wants
and
to go.
It's implied that Howen and Bailey get there, just in time.
To pull Stepney away from the lake, and therefore the origins of 1020, and therefore his influence.
So, it was... Let's just say it was a very close call. Stepney barely made it out alive.
Then we come to the basic plot of episode 3. It involves...
Which was my favorite episode.
Since Stepney is basically traumatized worse than Tiger sometimes says he is by Hazel Sandfix, something I don't quite believe.
Ouch.
But yeah, with Stepney being traumatized, Sir Topham Hatt must find another engine to work on rebuilding the line. This engine turns out to be the red narcissist himself, James!
Oh, yeah. Let's just say, this is one of the very few series that made me feel bad for James.
It basically starts drawing... James comes in and starts pulling a train. The thing is, it starts, from what my autism-plagued brain could understand, it starts drawing parallels between pulling that train to Howen, and by Howen in that case I mean the lake, and the goods train from his first day, with psychologically tormenting comments thrown in for good measure.
By the troublesome trucks, who, let's face it, the trucks are mischievous and they have fun causing wrecks, but they're not actively, I wouldn't call them malicious.
So it would seem that 1020 can influence weaker minds like the trucks or weaker pieces of rolling stock, i.e. trucks, with his will, and make them something of a mouthpiece to him.
Yeah, so 1020 basically has the ability to possess.
I wouldn't really...
rolling stock.
I wouldn't really call it possess. Possessing has something of a one-on-one thing. You can only possess one person, and not multiple, and as it's shown on multiple occasions, he basically talks through the mouths of multiple wagons at the same time.
Good point. But yeah, for whatever reason, 1020 seems to have a very serious vendetta against James. Or maybe James was just the unwitting patsy. We'll never really know.
And then we come to my favorite episode. Something that could, on one hand, be described as rather boring, but on the other hand, as very interesting from a story plot perspective because
yes,
episode 4
is chilling cutting.
It's basically the best thing where we learn the most about 1020 to this point.
This is the exposition episode.
Lordump!
Yes, and for a while, Chilling Cutting was my favorite episode because, again, Rusty.
So, basically,
all that stuff we've said about 1020, how he was wrecked, all the stuff he's been implied to be doing, his origins, and why he's doing what he does.
All stem from this.
All of that comes from this episode.
It basically starts with Rusty taking maintenance of way train in along the Scullery during winter time, while halting and letting the man check ahead. He is being left alone. 1020 uses this opportunity and starts talking to him.
Well, doesn't he try to scare him first, but Rusty's like, I know you're there?
That's basically it. He tries to scare him by talking to him, and Rusty's like, you don't scare me, you fucker.
Well, I think Rusty's a bit too nice to use that kind of language. But yeah, Rusty just sits there and lets 1020 monologue. And God, that monologue is chilling. Get it? The chilling cutting.
Tiger, that pun was horrible and you should be ashamed of yourself. But yeah, the dialogue is very plot heavy and very, very important for what is going on, especially if you view it retroactively. I did the stupid thing and watched episode 1, thought nothing of it, and then some months or even a year later, episode 4 shows up on my dashboard, and the fool I am, watch it and I'm, what the fuck is going on? So
accurate. Also, can I just mention 84FF Studios was his narration?
It's
the way
awesome.
He delivers that monologue is just mind-blowing.
It really brings across the anger that's within 1020's excuse for a soul.
I take it you don't like him or have any sympathy?
Oh, he has sympathy, just not pity.
Accurate. That's a good point.
But yes, 1020's monologue in episode 4 gives pretty much villain monologue in anime vibes. Just
Villain Monologues 101. Would you say it gives you chills, Warwell?
What? I learned about worse things in school.
My puns are too good for you.
Could be, but back on topic. It's a very interesting series, and from what the trailers show, it's very it's going a very, very traumatizing direction. Hazel would be proud.
Yeah, absolutely. And can I just mention how much of a positive impact this has had on the community?
Sure.
Because everyone is able to get together and theorize about what's going to happen next. And it's just an amazing bonding experience.
I just hope it doesn't ruin in any way or form, because that would just be stupid.
Well, I mean, Hazel and I kind of have the theory that Whalespin Split Space is going to be a full-length movie. Like, over an hour long. Because there's so much to do.
Yeah, that's something I thought about too, but what I mean is that, yes, hints should be dropped. That's some of the fun in making something like this. But, complete spoiling it would just ruin the whole experience. Plus, if it doesn't live up to the hype, people are going to be disappointed. That's what I meant by it ruining itself or others ruining it.
I think that's fair, except every episode has consistently improved upon the last one. So, I doubt, and I do mean I really doubt, that it's going to disappoint.
I also doubt that, but I'm not going to pretend that it isn't a slight possibility that it will. But
there's always the possibility. I
hope to the Omnissiah that it won't disappoint.
It probably won't disappoint, honestly.
Good. So, anything else really to talk about?
Let's talk about James. Because James does a lot in this series.
Yes, I think he is at the beginning of episode 4, talking to someone, but I'm not quite sure there.
Yeah, so James has a lot more of an intimate relationship with 1020 than a lot of the others. Because 1020 was there on James's first day, or at least that's what's been implied. And I feel like James has a lot more of a personal stake in this conflict, more than anyone except maybe Howin. James has a personal reason to want to bring 1020 down.
Which, after the stuff 1020 put James through, I can honestly understand. Then just remember, this podcast supports healthy coping mechanisms and not just murder.
We say we support healthy coping mechanisms, and yet we're us.
To put it into context, one of the rejected titles for this podcast was The Three Mentally Ill Engines.
Uh-huh. I mean, it's accurate, but probably not going to make people want to listen.
Yeah, but I will have to say this about it. The wait is killing me. Like, literally, the wait for episode 5 is killing me.
You say that, and yet I think it's your cough that's killing you.
I haven't coughed once during this entire conversation.
Something is going to break that streak. But Edward has a lot to do with this. Why does he know so much? Does he have a personal stake in this conflict like James?
I would say he does. He seems to know too much for it to just be a coincidence.
Yes.
He knows Harwin's there.
The question really is, why does Edward know so much? It doesn't make sense.
Either it is he was involved in the cleanup, or he has met 1020 after his death, but before the events featured up till now.
Yes.
Because I can quite well imagine that whatever happened with Harwin, well, Harwin and 1020 happened in the years between the wars, so probably early till basically during the 30s. And who would management trust during that time with cleaning up something like whatever the wreck or disaster led to 1020's death, but the most mature of them all, Edward.
Yeah, it's just, we still don't know how he knows all of this, because this is something that's always been true even in canon. Edward always knows more than everyone else. He's always the one with the ghost stories, with the wisdom.
He's probably the cleaner, you know? Cleaning up the messes from crime scenes and all that in an extracted sense. Like, he finds the clues during when he is called to clean something up, because, like I said, he's basically the most trustworthy of them all. Who else are you going to trust? But so he learns about what the fuck actually happens in the background on the island of Sodor. That would be my theory. If I'm wrong, I would be happy.
I like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it's also that Sodor itself kind of has a connection with Edward, not just the railway.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is getting a little more into Hazel's side of the mystical mumbo-jumbo, but I think Sodor itself has kind of reached out to Edward.
That sounds relatively logical, especially if we consider what has happened so far with Edward being at the right places at the right times more often than not.
Yeah,
I think Edward was the one to clean up James's wreck at the end of episode 3.
He was.
Then he already was on the abandoned line and basically told the workmen, go away if you value your sanity and life.
Pretty much.
And he, like we already mentioned, tells the original ghost story, which serves as the catalyst for all of this happening.
Yeah, it's just... That's one thing I appreciate about this series. There's always another mystery or something to think about. Speaking of things to think about, it's fan theory time.
I'm leaving that segment to you for now.
Oh, no, I want to get you involved in the discussion too.
I will reserve myself the rights to talk to you when I deem it appropriate, but for now you have the better idea of what's going on, as I also watch. It's not really my cup of tea. I like it. I really like it, but it's not my cup of tea.
That's fair. So, fan theories. What the hell is going to happen in episode 5, Railspin Split Space? So far, each and every one of these stories has had some basis or grounding in an existing episode, or just an existing story. Monster Under the Shed is obviously based off of the magazine story of the same name. The Monsters Are Due at Howland Lake is a far spookier example of Stepney Gets Lost.
Oh yes,
Combining
very
a
much.
little bit of Haunted Henry in there for good measure.
From what we've already talked about, episode 3 is basically something similar to James' introduction story. So, Breakdown Train. And
Episode 4, Chilling Cutting, has its roots in Duncan Gets Spooked.
from what the trailer shows, I would believe Railspin Split Space has at least some anchors to Toby and the Flood.
You see, you say that, and yet all I see is Rusty and the Boulder because, spoilers for anyone who hasn't watched the trailer, 1020 is possessing Thumper, which implies that he's the one that sets the boulder loose and sets all the events into motion.
That's also an episode it is connected to, I think, but I say Toby and the Flood because we see Harwin on a swept-away bridge section about to go over a waterfall, just like Toby and the Flood.
That's fair. So, I think the way this is going to go is, imagine these two massive stories, probably the two most epic stories of Season 5, just in terms of their scale, that would have devastated people for years to come, just on their own. Now imagine that, but both happen at once. Now you're talking island-destroying scale. This is something that could make or break the series as a whole, depending on how well Blue Snowplow executes these two massive plots, probably moving at the same time. So, we have these two massive plots, and then we have our 7 main characters so far. Howin, Old Bailey, James, Edward, Rusty, Stepney, and 1020. So far, we've seen minimal interaction between all of these characters. Edward and James obviously have their interactions, as well as Edward along with Howin and Old Bailey, but
we haven't seen anything of Stepney or Rusty since last time.
We don't really have a frame of reference for the others. So, the way I'm thinking the story will happen is something like this. We're going to get a big all come together situation where everyone finally comes together. They unite. and they're going to have to stop two problems at once. 1020 possessing Thumper and setting the boulder loose, and the problem of the flood, which, I mean, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for 1020 to be behind that too.
I mean, the flood could originate in Howen Lake and therefore be at least under something resembling 1020's control. So, yeah, that makes a very good point.
So, all of these characters are going to come together. I think that Rusty and Edward technically appear on screen at the same time during Rusty and the Boulder, so that might play a factor here. But in the end, it's all going to come down to Howen, Old Bailey, 1020, and, believe it or not, James. James is a much larger player in this series than some might think.
I do believe I have to agree with you on that, because the screen time he's been given, and
Yes.
that's what has been done with him so far, don't really agree with one another. So, we are getting some more James action.
And if you look at it just from a writing perspective, who's had the biggest character arc so far? Who's had to deal with the most? Because Rusty had a lore dump, Stephanie kind of appears once and then gets shuttled off. Edward and Howen are kind of the guardians, but James is the one who has undergone the most significant character development. There's too much on the table for James in this series for him to not be the main character, or at least one of the main characters of Railspin Split Space.
Oh, I do agree with that, because he's just been through so much already, and if it doesn't pay off, it would have been wasted time.
And that's the thing with Monster Under the Shed. Yet another one of its amazing features. Go watch it. I will keep saying that. Everything has a setup and payoff. Chekhov's gun is a submachine gun in this series.
No. It's not a submachine gun, it's a fucking 50 cal machine gun. Because
Fair.
the impact it's going to give once fired, those are going to be hard, heavy, and at least on the mental scale, very destructive,
Lethal.
I feel. So I would say it's more like an M2.
That's the permanent way crew for you, everybody. We just went from Thomas to firearms in the blink of an eye. But yeah,
Especially since I'm not allowed to any. Back to the topic, yes.
Setup and payoff is something that has always been executed well in this series. Everything that gets brought up again. There's no such thing as wasted screen time. Even just the tiny blink and you'll miss it shots are important. So that's why I think that James has to be the main character of Railspin Split Space. there's no other option because of all the development he's gotten.
I wouldn't really say main character.
Well, one of the main characters.
I would more say main character-ish.
Accurate.
Yeah, because I feel the way the monster under the Shed Saga is set up, it's more along the lines of there's no real main character. It's
it's an ensemble story.
Yes, an ensemble story. Something I personally love.
Ensemble stories are excellent. But the thing with ensemble stories is that they're always tricky to get right, because if you don't strike this perfect balance, somebody is going to get shafted.
And please, for some reason, like literally some reason, please Snowplow listens to this. Don't shaft anyone. It's boring. Makes one lose interest.
Okay, so before we kind of move on to just general gushing and kind of discussion of the finer plot points, last fan theory. In order for 1020 to be put to rest, Howin has to die too. They're linked. They've always been linked, even from the start of the show. When Howin shows up, 1020 shows up, and vice versa.
I wouldn't. So you're putting it like either none die or both die.
Yeah.
Well, die in a bit of a loose sense. 1020 is already dead for decades, but you get what I mean.
In order for 1020's soul to move on, Howin has to die, and my guess is that he has to willingly give himself up.
That could maybe be something that is happening with the flood. Him getting swept into the waters, like something that could have happened to 1020 himself.
Oh, that's brilliant. He's recreating 1020's fate.
Which would be on very poetic irony. Plus, if you look closely at 1020's model, though, you will see some small dents and a lot of seaborne rust on him, like
he died drowning?
Yes, like he died drowning and hasn't even been pulled up. You can see not only the red brown of normal rust, but you also see the green of algae buildup on him.
This, ladies, gents, and NBs, is stuff that only Warwell notices, and I will forever be grateful for it.
I think you just need glasses.
I wear glasses. I'm a big picture kind of guy.
Yeah, my opinion is for the big picture to be seen, you must notice the small details within it.
That's very poetic. Back to talking about talking trains.
That transition, awesome.
So, Howin has to die in order to put 1020 to rest. And he has to do it either willingly by recreating 1020's fate or both. Scale of 1 to 10, how likely do you find this theory?
About a 6 or 7 out of 10, I would say.
Yeah, that seems fair. Seems fair.
Because, yes, from especially if you look at the trailer, you can see 1020 waiting just beyond the waterfall, as if waiting for him to take the plunge and for them both to be freed from the eternal torment they are both currently stuck in.
Mm-hmm. So, I think that makes a lot of sense, but just kind of a thing about the waterfall itself. I think it might be like the veil from Harry Potter. Which, I mean, that's a rant for a mini-sode if y'all are interested, but...
What exactly would be the rant?
The waterfall might serve as a gateway between the spiritual realm and the physical realm. So as soon as Hawin goes over...
I wouldn't really say a gateway, more as a symbolizer of the passing from one state to the other.
Good point.
They're more like how the Egyptians saw the setting and rising of the sun.
Well, there's a lot to be said about the Egyptians basing it off of the setting of the sun, because in terms of gateway, I was thinking more of the river Styx.
That could also be an option, but for me, the sun setting on the Nile would be a more direct comparison to what we see in the trailer. Because if you think about it, Hawin is going down. He's going down a river and going to fall down a waterfall. I.e. like the sun going down in the evening.
Good point, good point.
That's why I would say the Egyptian the Egyptian comparison in this case is the better one, though the river Styx certainly could play a role in describing it.
The Styx' name, I'm pretty sure... I mean, tiny detail, but like, if you translated the word Styx, hold up, I have a crazy idea.
Go for it! While Tiger's concentrating on researching his little theory, some basic info. You can find both Tiger and myself, plus the potential third host of this podcast, on Tumblr, and for Tiger, the alias of Tigerhawk, and for myself, the alias BR Hater, and for our third host, and the most prolific writer from the three of us, because she puts out the most of her from all three of us, Hazel of Soda. So, if you're interested in reading some of the stuff we write, look us up.
Okay, so my theory was a bust. Google Translate sucks ass. But
how can you suck ass?
What?
How can you suck ass?
Oh god, don't give people ideas, Warwell.
Too late! I already have them.
Basically, my basic theory was that the Sudric word for whatever river Howin was sailing down would translate somehow to Styx, or one of the rivers of the underworld.
Interesting theory.
Or maybe that's just my inner Percy Jackson fan showing up.
Mine has been here all the time.
Yep.
So, that's theory time. Now general gushing. As already stated at the beginning, the quality is second to none.
Oh, yes. Look,
Like
Trains is easy to use, that's why everyone uses it more than something like Wooden Railway. But even in Trains, the production value of Monster Under the Shed is simply unmatched. Orwell?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just looking for something. You take over gushing for a moment. I have to look something up because I have some ideas about how some of the things were made, but I just need to take a look at some of the clips before I can make final judgment on it.
Okay then. So, production value. Trains is easy to use. Like I said, there's a reason it's so popular. It's very easy for people to pick up, and it's very easy to replicate that kind of model series aesthetic. This is where you get people like Carson's Video Workshop, who just are able to almost perfectly recapture that early TV series feel. But Blue Snowplow just... everything about Monster Under the Shed's production, from little things like the lighting, the shadows, hell, even the textures of the landscapes. All these little things are perfectly set up to simultaneously recreate Season 5 to the point where the only difference is the computer animation, and to give the feel of an actual, production and feature-length film. It's insane. You look at this and you think, this must have been made by a professional. But it's a guy on Trains who just pays a lot of attention.
So I just looked at some of the clips, and I really can't stress enough how beautiful the production values translate into the finished project. Like the shaky cam he uses is just right. It literally gives you the feeling that you are riding ill-maintained bumpy track and something at very high speeds.
And to add to that, it adds to the feeling of realism. Especially with, like, it makes you feel like you're watching the models. Like you're watching an episode of Season 5.
Something else I have to give praise to is the distortions. They are beautifully made so that they don't take away from the story and start being distracting, but they actually really show you how out of place a locomotive like 1020 should be.
Oh, yeah.
Because they enhance his creepiness, not make it so annoying that it's almost laughable. Something I've seen and don't want to see again.
Permission to go off on a bit of a tangent? Because you had a good point going.
Granted.
And I just give credit to the writing room. TheBlueSnowplow himself, Mainland for the model quality, and just Chase Theed, who is on Twitter at CTFeologist and fanfiction.net as Chase the Ferroequinologist. I've been reading this guy's stuff for years. He does a lot of voice acting for the kind of Blue Snowplow, I Love Trains 323 section of the Thomas YouTube community. But when he is writing horror, this is where his kind of overall vision and Blue Snowplow's attention to detail just boom, unmatched.
They basically create a brand new category of TTTE horror by basically shooting their two talents together in a metaphorically to be seen particle accelerator.
Yeah. I mean, if I was making a writing team from scratch, those two would be two of my first picks.
What they do is absolutely awesome. And I
said it earlier in the pod, I'll say it again. 84F Studios knocks this narration out of the park. It's kind of this perfect middle path between Michael Angelis and Alec Baldwin, with this kind of calm, steady cadence that lends a feel of gravity to the story.
Yes, it's just... It really shows what dedicated fans can make if we all pull together and continue to pull together for years to come. Because this is a community that is built on teamwork, understanding, and being nice to each other.
And despite all our problems, all our inner fandom drama, when we come together and we create something like Monster Under the Shed, this is what the Thomas community can do. This is what's special about us.
We are a community who has the tools, the will, and from time to time the patience to work together and do shit like Monster Under the Shed. Because it's awesome. It gives you a real feel of how horrific something like this can be. And it's just a beautiful example of why a communities like ours should not, for one thing, be gatekept from outsiders or from our own. And on the other side, should not be treated with the ridicule the general public gives us.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't understand how people... This is something that's always bugged me, especially as a bit of a Transformers fan, as well as a Thomas and Friends fan. One of the biggest people in the Transformers community, a guy by the name of Chris McFeely, he went out and said, "Wait, Thomas, there's actually a fandom for that shit? You gotta be kidding." Well, not exactly. He's British, so it was probably a bit more passive-aggressive polite, but...
Oh no, don't make yourself imagine things. British people can be very rude if they want to be, trust me. It's a stiff upper lip.
I don't understand how people can perfectly accept fandoms like Transformers or Mario or Pokemon or My Little Pony for adults, but as soon as we like talking trains, it's, no, grow up. Anyway, that tangent over. Monster Under the Shed. Watch it. 9.5 out of 10. I can't give it a 10 yet, because the final part hasn't come out yet. That's coming out in February 2023. Take the time to familiarize yourself with the series. And
from my side, it's an 8 just because it's good so far, but a bad ending could ruin the whole experience.
I think that's fair. I'm so hyped. I cannot wait for this to get a final part.
If you like this, contact us in any way you can find. We are open to review and constructive criticism. If you just want to complain, you can talk to a wall.
Or, I mean, you can take it to Twitter, considering that no one's going to be there in a couple weeks.
Also valid.
So, Warwell, look into the future. What are we doing next week?
Let me look it up.
I'll answer it for you because I have the document open.
Thank God.
Next week, for those of you who are interested, Hazel, that's probably you, anyone in the train in chat server, please listen to this. Next week we are doing Tobias and the Half Pariah by Time Sense.
Can't wait.
Warwell, I will see you soon. And for all of you who have listened, thank you so much. Hopefully Hazel will be able to join us next week. But for now, I'm Tigerhawk7109.
And I'm Warwell. And we're signing off. Goodbye.